What's up, guys? I'm Michael. Welcome to this week's Behind Box Office. The superhero genre has become a dominating force in contemporary Hollywood, delivering 4 of the top 10 highest grossing movies in just the past decade. On the other hand, there have also been quite a few big bombs from the genre due to the blooming budget and ever-changing marketplace. Today, we're gonna look at the biggest superhero bombs in the cinematic history, based on absolute gross loss on worldwide earnings. Are you ready? Let's go! This one is probably unfamiliar for most viewers, cause it came from 1999 when superhero movies were yet to be the mainstay in Hollywood. Mystery Man, a Dark Horse Comics adaptation from Universal Pictures, tells the story of a group of inept amateur superheroes who must try to save the day when a supervillain threatens to destroy a major superhero and the city. Box office-wise, after debuting in August that year, Mystery Man wrapped up its domestic run with less than $30 million and merely $3.7 million overseas. That translates into an estimated $16.36 million theatrical rental. Even with a relatively modest budget of $68 million, Mystery Man is still estimated to lose $51.64 million on an absolute gross loss basis, before counting the P&A cost and post-theatrical earnings. For more explanation on the calculation methodology, please check out the description section. Watchmen is one of Zack Snyder's most daring visionary exploration, albeit with a heavy cost. Watchmen opened with $55 million in March 2009, finishing at nearly $108 million stateside, a pretty solid number in its own right. However, it underperforms overseas with less than $80 million, failing to reach $190 million globally. That translates into an estimated $85.54 million theatrical rental. With a $138 million budget, Watchmen is estimated to lose $52.46 million on an absolute gross loss basis, ranking as the 9th biggest superhero bombs. It's worth noting that Watchmen had quite a strong run in the home entertainment market, which might actually reduce its net loss attributing to Warner Brothers in the end. But Watchmen is hardly the last DC movie to make it into today's ranking. Superman Returns, starring Brandon Routh as Man of Steel, was once touted as a major cinema-going event when it launched, but eventually became one of the worst gambles in the superhero genre. Opening before the Independence Day holiday 17 years ago, Superman Returns opened with over $52 million, but lost steam faster than its competitor, finishing at a bit over $200 million stateside. It did even more poorly overseas, collecting only $191 million, leading to a global tally of $391 million. For comparison, Pirates of the Caribbean Deadman's Chest, which opened a week later, ultimately crossed the coveted $1 billion mark. What's worse, Superman Returns cost a hefty $232 million to produce, easily the most expensive movie ever made at the time. With an estimated $175 million theatrical rental, Superman Returns sustained a gross loss of over $56 million, burying Warner Brothers' hope of starting a new franchise before Marvel Cinematic Universe came into being. What a missed chance of history. Among all versions of Catwoman on the big screen, Halle Berry is probably the least memorable, and her solo outing was also a financial misfire. Catwoman almost crashed out the gate, opening with $16 million before settling at $40 million stateside. Its overseas performance was equally bad with less than $42 million. A global tally of $82 million could only translate into an estimated $36.85 million theatrical rental. Meanwhile, Catwoman cost $100 million to make, leading to an estimated gross loss of $63 million. Ever since this huge bomb, Catwoman has never appeared in a major motion picture on her own. Turning from a modestly successful franchise starter into a sinking sequel takes just 4 years. Shazam! Fury of the Gods was never gonna outrun its predecessor after numerous delays, but it tanked even harder than most would expect. Opening with $30 million in March, Shazam! Fury of the Gods declined no less than 66% in 4 of the 5 consecutive weekends, wrapping up its domestic run with a disastrous $57.64 million, or merely 41% of what the first Shazam earned. Its overseas gross of $74.57 million is not helping either, adding up to $132 million globally. This translates into an estimated $57.74 million theatrical rental, with a ballooning budget of $125 million, or $40 million more than its predecessor. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is estimated to lose $67 million, ranking number 6 on the list. After such a massive failure, it's difficult to argue against a hard reboot for the DC Extended Universe. The latest from the DC Extended Universe is undoubtedly a box office disappointment, and is now poised to be one of the biggest superhero bombs. As of June 29th, The Flash has only earned $94 million in the domestic market and $123 million internationally after 2 weeks of release. Based on its declining trajectory, The Flash is projected to make a bit over $100 million stateside and less than $300 million globally. That will translate into an estimated $125 million theatrical rental. As reported by Warner Brothers, The Flash cost approximately $200 million to produce. Putting these two numbers together, The Flash is estimated to lose $75 million on an absolute gross loss basis, ranking as the 5th biggest superhero bombs. Suffering 2 massive failures in 3 months, a hard reboot of DCEU is the only viable option for Warner Brothers. Another legendary flop from DC. Dating back to 2011, Green Lantern was almost an identical misstep as Superman Returns, albeit on a larger scale. Opening with an underwhelming $53 million that June, Green Lantern crashed hard afterwards, wrapping up its domestic run with around $116 million. It grossed even less overseas, adding up to $219 million globally. This only translates into an estimated $98 million theatrical rental. With a budget as high as $200 million, Green Lantern is estimated to lose a massive $102 million, cementing its place as one of the most notorious superhero bombs. In hindsight, Green Lantern was Warner Brothers' last attempt to kickstart a standalone big-budget superhero movie, and its demise forced DC to launch its own DC Extended Universe 2 years later. DC's losing streak on today's ranking is on hold for the moment. Dark Phoenix served as technically the finale of then 20th Century Fox's X-Men movies, whose unprecedented failure also terminated this 2-decade-strong franchise financially. Opening with $32.8 million in June 2019, Dark Phoenix collapsed amid the heated competition of summer, ending its domestic run with less than $66 million. Combining with an overseas gross of $180 million, Dark Phoenix only had $246 million in bank. This translates into an estimated $96.26 million theatrical rental. With a $200 million budget, Dark Phoenix is estimated to lose over $103 million, pushing 20th Century Fox further into abyss before being devoured by Walt Disney. The following year, Disney released the last X-Men movie in store, The New Mutants, during the depths of pandemic. Now with X-Men fully under the control of Kevin Feige, it seems the misery of Dark Phoenix will soon be forgotten. Or will it? First up, the second biggest superhero bomb comes with an asterisk. It's a day and date release. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad was released into theaters as well as then HBO Max without extra fee in August 2021, which certainly hurt its box office returns to an extent. Opening with $26 million, The Suicide Squad didn't hold on to its screens for too long, finishing at $55.8 million stateside. Its overseas gross almost doubled, pushing its global tally to $167 million. However, this only translates into an estimated $72 million theatrical rental. With a $185 million budget, The Suicide Squad is estimated to lose $112 million on an absolute gross loss basis. It's almost tragic to see Warner Brothers stick to this failing day-and-date model for a full year, which created some of the most notorious bombs without a clear benefit to its streaming service. And The Suicide Squad is not the biggest victim. Yes, the biggest superhero bomb in the cinematic history is another day-and-date release from Warner Brothers, with an asterisk. Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 1984 was actually the first big-budget movie of any genre to be released in theaters and on streaming simultaneously, thus losing the most money of them all. Opening in December 2020, before even the first working vaccine was available, Wonder Woman 1984 failed to lure a large crowd of audience into theaters without much surprise, wrapping up its domestic run with $46.8 million. Its overseas gross was slightly generous, leading to a global tally of $166 million. This translates into an estimated $67 million theatrical rental. With a $200 million budget, Wonder Woman 1984 sustained a gross loss of over $132 million, becoming the biggest money loser ever in the superhero genre. Had it been postponed to a later date with an exclusive theatrical model, Wonder Woman 1984 would see its loss reduced considerably. All in all, DC Warner Brothers took 8 spots of the top 10 superhero bombs, with the remaining 2 going to then 20th Century Fox and Universal Pictures. As a side note, of all the 32 movies from Marvel Cinematic Universe, only 2 had lost money, both of which sustained a gross loss of roughly $20 million each. Now that Warner Brothers has decided to conduct a hard reboot of DCEU, they still have a lot of catch-up to do. Okay, this is today's Behind Box Office. If you have any thought or topic that you're interested in, feel free to write in the comments. And if you like this video, please share and subscribe. See you next time.